Hello, welcome to season 4 of How to Play D&D, the explainer podcast with one experienced dungeon master and one failed scriptwriter to discuss D&D topics. My name is Kinsey, and my illustrious guest this week is Sean Smith. Hello, Sean.
Hello, Connor. How are you?
Hi. I'm good, thank you. Yeah, thanks for asking. How are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. It's absurdly sunny to the point where I'm worried that the sky has been replaced.
Yes, it does make sense.
Probably fine.
Yeah, no matter where I've got like lighting all around me to make this a bit less weird, and even though there's blinds, you can see it's fully blown out on this recording, and I cannot fix that unless people want to see a fridge the opposite way. So what can you do? Yeah,
is it a good fridge
podcast? I'm not gonna say no because it's my partner's, and I'm scared. So, and she may listen to this. Who knows? I have the gall to assume that my partner cares what I make. But yeah, there we go. All good. So this is the DM season. You've assigned yourself a topic to talk about. Can you tell us what that topic is?
So today we're going to talk about problem players and particularly how it's best to deproblematize them.
Perfect. Let's get to it. Okay, so today's episode is about problem players in D&D. Problem players are the best type of players because it's the only physical representation of everything I hate in the world without having to explain my feelings to my husband. How about you, Sean?
I pretty much find it that way. Like I find pretty much I can't trust people's yeses until I hear a no, and so the pressure of having awkward people at the table is definitely useful.
That's the dream. Yeah, it's the dream to have people there when you go, they are real, and how do I solve this? It's like it's a solution in itself. Okay, so here's the weird question. Sean, sticking tape to my nipples and screaming manslaughter isn't funny. That's why I'm trying to break out of the sex dungeon. Where is the sex dungeon? What am I doing?
So what's most likely to be is that the sex dungeon is actually directly underneath the largest spire within Mordor.
Oh shit! Okay.
Pretty much one of the best ways of actually getting into there tends to be pretending to be involved somehow in some of the situations that are going on there. And I'd like to say it's a kind of infiltration project, but really it's a sort of like honey trap.
Yeah, you're talking as if you haven't been there, but I've got a feeling that you might have, and you're just trying to stay on the
I think for various disclosure points, I've been advised not to be precise about the exact answer to that question.
Right. Okay. Well, with that, we'll get into the proper questions. Also, the actual logic, I was like, he's done it. He's completed it. I never have to ask these questions ever again. So someone's finally broken this down. So, the Winter Soldier password has been selected.
It's been activated.
Okay. Yeah. Sean, could you give some examples of problem players a new DM may face?
Yeah, so quite often one of the things that people are going to find really difficult to deal with is somebody who is outright refusing to take part in any of the agreed things. So like, we're all here to play a game together, and someone, typically maybe even 4 or 5 people at the same time, are Mr. Grumpy Lone Wolves who don't have any friends and refuse to go off for stuff. That's probably one of the biggest 10 problem player types. Quite often you then also get people who want to bring like almost that they feel jealous of your position as dungeon master, and they kind of want to be the person who has the most control at the table, and typically a lot of the things that they're going to do is kind of to try and like wrest that power from you.
Yeah.
And so the last kind of player is very much when they're expecting you to be almost like your performing monkey, and they'll kind of sit there at the table like you are their court jester and they are the king. But the last I checked, we didn't have feudalism in this country.
Yeah, I totally agree. We've talked about it before on the podcast, and we had a player who turned up with all of the bits a DM had, and then made sure that they would ask. The worst thing is, for instance, they would be way earlier than me, and I'm always around half an hour early. And they would, because if I'm on time, I'm late in my life. So I just, it's a personal thing. But they would be there when I was there, already. And then when the players would get there, they would make sure to be first to actually ask the players if they needed any dice, if they needed pen and paper. So it weren't hiding the fact that they wanted to be the DM, but then they've given up the opportunity, had no idea how to kind of run the room. So an odd one to have, but yeah, these are definitely problem and also then a lone wolf in game. So wants to be the DM and help the party at the table, but they're not in the session. So yeah, this isn't a witch hunt, but it's good to kind of point out the kind of players as a new DM you should be looking for, I think.
Okay, I think half the time those people don't even realize it. Like,
no, yeah,
they will often sit there turning up, doing all of these behaviors and not realizing, oh wait, actually, it's like, I can never get a good game in. It's like, it's because you're being a bit of an asshole.
Yes, yeah. We've had multiple players like that where it's clearly not like it feels like a personal vendetta sometimes, but it's clearly just they're just unconsciously that's how they are, and it just happens to not work in D&D very well when it's a team game on and off the table, Okay, what can new DMs do to deal with problem players at their table?
So I think half the time, and it's almost like a kind of a medical issue here as well, is that if you're having to fix it in the moment, it's too late almost in a way. A lot of the times, the best things to do are kind of to stop the barriers beforehand, and I think some of that is making it like deciding in your own head what behaviors you will and won't accept. Like as a thing that's an adjunct, I don't think people having phones at the table makes them a problem player. But I know several DMs who don't like phones at the table, and if you don't like phones at the table, and you haven't told that to your players, maybe you should. But I think half of that is sitting down, even for like 5-10 minutes, and thinking, what's it going to look like for some good players at the table? What are some things that are going to be awkward? You probably won't have to think about things that are going to be terrible, but it might be useful. It's like, well, if someone's this, I won't accept that. And essentially just not even deciding what you're going to do about them, but just saying, these are what's acceptable, and don't do these things. Because then one of the other issues, again, we're just saying about sometimes problem players not realizing that they are problem players. It's really hard in the moment, especially if you're a new DM, you're rereading the module 5 times at a point because you swear there's a section within there that says exactly how many hit points this door has. But annoyingly, because you've got 6 people looking at you and you can't find exactly where that page is. All of that thing, if you haven't then also got to decide on top of that, wait, is this too far? If you've pre-decided that, you're fine. And it's essentially just working out what you want, what you'll accept at the table.
Yeah, we've once again, we talked about it a lot on the podcast where it's kind of like you want to do session zeros, like you want to kind of prep how it could possibly go. And that's not just so you know as a DM the outcome of how those players will act, but they also know that if you're the right DM for them. And like you said, we literally had someone on the podcast last week, and they don't have phones at the table. I actually do use a phone to play D&D because carrying paper everywhere, and like I don't ever feel like there's enough room on the paper for what I need to write down. No. So it's a mixed bag, and everyone's different. But I think there's a certain type of player who if you do need to rule because you don't know, they'll happily challenge it, and it's really like your patience, or in advance, like you said, like giving them a full warning of kind of like, this is how it's going to be, like this is what the room reads like, and that's for everyone, not just for specific people, Okay, how do DMs prevent problem players being at their table in the first place? So I know we've just talked about, it's kind of like a step before that, where, I mean, these are things to think about, right? Sometimes it's just a Facebook group, and you can see, you instantly get the kind of person, and you're like, yeah, I've seen this person ask 1,000 different people in this page, and you can read the comments, and it's like, yeah, he's gone along to a session, but now he's not in the campaign. Why is that? And you kind of assuming, right, for your own safety rather than just being judgmental. You're just making sure that the game's fluid when it comes to it.
Exactly. And I think one of those things is, especially because this is a community space as well, and the game is a communal game. And so I think having that benefit of, and it's not quite such a thing as like I mean, now you can read the Reddit post in the future about, it's like my DM requested that I give them four months of references from my last 7 games. But I think a certain thing is just, especially if you've got particular fears about someone being like, I'm not sure about this. There are certainly going to be at least a number of other people you can talk to about it. Some of it are other things that I find is that, so I run a lot of stuff in the OSR space, so like old school role-playing stuff. And there are a very high number of absolute horrible men that are kind of kicking about and they're like, we used to play the game like this, which isn't necessarily true because I know other ones who didn't necessarily play it in annoying, frustrating ways. And sometimes I've just described things in such a way, especially if I'm like pitching the game, that's just going to cause such disdain to players who are going to likely kick off. So like 2 things that quite often I've used, just the addition of player pronouns in a description and saying, here are some safety tools we're going to use, has immediately weeded out 90% of like horrible reactionaries who would otherwise want to join the game. And so I think especially like being able to like flag your values up front so that you're playing with other people, because again, it's a game. You're doing this as a piece of enjoyment. So getting other people who you'd want to share a pint with. Like, I don't want to have to share a pint with someone who I'm just going to disagree with at all the points or not have anything to talk about. So kind of making that quite clear. And I think a lot of the related stuff to that's almost like I kind of describe it like a dinner party in a lot of ways in that. So I used to be a teacher, and one of the biggest problems in education that's pretty much always been the case is like domain specific recall. It's when people learn a fact in maths, but forget they know it when they're doing the same problem in physics. And it's pretty much the same for when running D&D. Like if you could host a dinner party in your house, you already know the social rules you're going to accept when you're running a game. And it's kind of like connecting those things. But in the same way, like you're not going to cook a pizza for a table of people who are like lactose intolerant and cannot eat gluten. And so it's kind of about making sure everyone's like, hey, do you want to come to my dinner party? Oh, it's full of pizza. That will kill you. Oh, well, I'm sure it'll be fine.
That's a one shot in itself. I'm definitely writing that down for a future year. The murder mystery is just they're all intolerant to the food that was cooked accidentally. Politeness. There we go. Sorted. I totally agree. It's like we said a minute ago about reading the room. It's like if you're like I said, if you're hosting, you kind of still need to take into account other people's situations and what they might require. The pronouns one's a really good one. It takes no effort to do it, and it takes more effort to have a problem with it. In my campaign we don't bother with it, but in other campaigns I've been in where I have ran it or been a part of, they do it, and I go, yeah, brilliant, okay. It literally makes no difference. To be invested in it is almost odd to be angry about it. Do you know what I mean? And I think it's a really good way, like you said, of weeding out those players when arguably most of the rules that you'll probably implement are actually for players to have more fun and to welcome more players, whether they're old or new. So if you're doing that and at the same time removing the players who don't want new players around, it's kind of a win-win situation, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Like I'm only in favor of gatekeeping when it's for the gatekeepers. It's like everyone should turn up, but if you want to kick people out and you're not in charge, then you can go and build. What did I describe it? Build your own porch. You can shout from any porch you like if you own it, but you can't shout from my porch.
Yeah, totally fair. Okay, last question then. Can you give an example of dealing with problem players and what did you do about it?
Yeah, so I think particularly a situation where, and it was a situation where like I knew the guy really well, and we were all good friends as a group. And he decided that right at the very front door of the dungeon, it was like a nice beginner dungeon. It was like, okay, you go down the steps. There's basically it's basically a straight line which gets a bit broader in places. It's like, right, there's the final boss up the top. You can see the route you're going through. And right at the beginning, it's like, well, I'm going to turn around and walk back in the direction of this. So I just gave him increasingly less stage time. And we flipped between the things. And it's like, okay, well, you've now walked for 3 days. Can you roll me survival? Cool. Okay, so you've now lost this many rations. You've lost this thing. And I think in that very specific situation, because I think he was, and again, like we've known each other for years, and he was actively trying to be a dick.
Yeah.
But we all knew each other as a group anyway, so it's like, oh, okay. Well, I'll beat you at this game then. And very much just gave him exactly what he wanted, which is that he went off on his own quest where he got no experience, had an argument with the guard, and it was quite fun I know it feels almost like quite Discworldy in a way, where you're just kind of flitting between different things that are happening. Where there's like this like outrageous fight going on in this dungeon, where there's these like deeply poisonous mushrooms, and you're being attacked on the staircase. And then he was struggling over trying to get his correct hole to get through the door with a real job's worth. So in that very specific case, if they're like, I bet you won't do this, call the bluff half the time, because they're almost expecting you to act out of embarrassment to do something separate to fix things, and half the answer is you get what you wish for.
I mean, the old rule of DMing is, like, don't say no to anything. Well, that kind of works in your favor in that situation, where fine, if you want to do that and I've prepped all of this for you to have fun, then we'll happily wing it and see how that goes for you. But I'm not going to give you as much time as you think, because I had all of this prep for you. I've given you more than enough time. So
exactly.
We used to run a West Marches server, and we had players on there who some of them were just quite young in the head. Some of them were just like, I literally want to go to a village and just burn the village down. And you go, okay, that's a bit random. That doesn't make any sense to your character. Fine. And because it's a server, it's just a world, and they're role playing in these different channels on Discord. And we would just arrest them. And funnily enough, you would give them less and less time, because arguably, what can they do in jail for 2 real weeks? But they would fucking roleplay the prison for 2 weeks, and you're like, do you know what? I'll happily give you that time. Like, I don't reply to you for 8 hours. It's because the jailer's not replying to you for 8 hours. And they loved it. Sometimes that's exactly what they want. And you go, I can't punish you enough. But do you know what? You're punishing yourself. And if you enjoy that, fine. So sometimes it's a weird vicious circle. Okay, well, yeah. Do you have anything more to add before we go to the outro?
No, I think the only other thing is, much in the same words of Smokey the Bear, only you can prevent problem players. And by setting fire to them, functionally.
Yeah, it works quite nicely. Yeah. Sometimes that's what they want. It's a weird kink. Okay, well, today's adventure is sadly coming to a close. We're back in next week with the topic, how far do you think you can throw an ostrich? And as always, thank you for tuning in. If you like joining on the D&D action, then please follow us on Instagram at HowToPlayD&D, or check out the link in our bio to join our Discord server. I've been Connor Kinsey.
I've been Sean Smith.
There we go. Good day.